health transformation. Good evening, everyone. This is Vidhi Beri, your health transformation coach. We are on day 13 of re-engineering your nutrition and health, and we're specializing in our little young ones and our family this whole week. Now, one topic that has absolutely not been discussed enough is fussy eating, fussy eaters. At what age do children and young adults start becoming fussy? And what is the real mystery behind this fussiness? Is it natural? Did it exist 50 years ago? And what are we doing wrong? Because it seems to be plaguing all mothers. It's a common question that comes to me every time a mother comes. Before I even discuss anything, she has decided that her child is a fussy eater. Only a mother who seems to be able to feed everything to her child says, I'm very happy, my child eats everything, there's no fussiness. And that happens, as you guessed right, very seldom. So today we are going to discuss the most contentious and the most popular topic of fussy eating and what can we do to fortify and rectify these young children and adults. Please share the story on your timeline and put on your alerts for fomonomore. Now, as we go ahead, we must go back to the root and explore what's really going on. What's really going on is, if you look at evidence through research, through stories, you'll find that 50 years ago, this phenomenon didn't exist at all. There was hardly any fussy eating, as we call it today. Is it a perception? Is it something we've created? How is it possible that human beings or little children who were feeding continuously on their moms are now suddenly toddlers who are not interested in eating? So I'm going to take this right from the base, right from where the root of the problem begins and why it begins. In my 10 years of experience as a maternity wellness advisor, working prenatally, postnatally with mothers on their infant and solid weaning, and then through their early years of toddler and child nutrition, to seeing adults who have lifestyle issues, diseases, hormonal imbalances, and continue to be fussy eaters as adults with a compromised immune, digestive, and respiratory system. So this is why we need to address this, because this fussy eating is already manifesting in adults, and we also have a parallel line running. Now we need supplementation, which is a need that didn't exist. Whether that is a need created by marketing and industry, whether that is a real need, is something that we have to address. But it has almost sprung up at the same time as this fussy eating phenomena. So let's go back to the usual Indian family structure size, which was above 6 to 8 people in a family. And yes, I am going to use a cultural context to really bring forth the issues. When we had larger families 50 years ago, there wasn't so much knowledge, time, and attention that was passed on from one mother to another in the sense of what is the right food to give or what isn't. There was a large family, there was a large kitchen where things were being cooked, and there was just a similar kind of food that everyone was eating. So there was a standard, there was a discipline, and there wasn't much scope for one child to say, I don't like this, so make 10 different foods or vegetables for me. No one had the time or the inclination to do so because we had more than one child in the family. 50 years forward, we went from 10 children to one family to 4 children to one family, and now only 1 or 2. So there are more elders, 1 or 2 little young ones, and those little young ones are not being born every 15 years, they are being born every almost 30 years. So there's a huge gap in knowledge, huge gap in information, smaller family sizes, a long age gap between when the last child in the family was born and now, and lesser children. So more attention to give to that 1 or 2 children, not only for the parents but for the grandparents also. So right from the beginning, we are sowing the seeds of great to give more love and attention, but how do we manifest that? Now let's come to when we start feeding a baby on the mother on day 1 post birth. Every mother comes to me and says, this child is always hungry. I don't know if I have enough food in my body to feed this child. Fast forward to 6 months, 8 months later, and the mother says, I don't know how to feed this child because this child doesn't seem to be interested in eating. Fast forward another 6 months, 14 to 18 months is the nightmare time. My child was still eating, but now it doesn't want milk, it doesn't want food, it doesn't want to chew solids. They're making all of this fun with food, throwing it around. We're trying to inculcate self-eating, and that's still not happening. What is really going on? So I am going to now break this down for you because there's a lot of perception gaps in terms of growth, and today we are going to get a little technical on the vitamins and minerals required. We're going to get a little technical on age groups and what is really required in the body. The first 2 years of a child's life is all about fat. 30% of the child's diet needs to be fat. When, as healthier adults with all of this nutritional knowledge and awareness, we try to give our children healthy food, guess what happens? It backfires. They don't want to eat anymore. They start losing weight. We are not meeting the parameters as per our pediatrician, and then we start switching to processed food. That's one of the huge problems that our mothers are facing, that they are not giving fats. So going back to our first session, jogging our memory about fats, I'm going to add to that list. Why do babies need fat? Because they need to grow. They need their bodies to be alkaline, and they need their gut to be lined to prepare themselves for a more robust digestive system going forward. What are some of these fats? Ghee, like I said, is the wonder fat for me and for all Indians. Then we have coconut milk, coconut cream, coconut malai, like what we have inside the coconut that we drink. And the brown coconut you can actually grate and use in purees, vegetables, soups, everything. Avocados are a great one. Cold pressed extra virgin coconut oil is also a great one. And soft 5-minute boiled egg yolks. So you can start this for a pre-1-year-old as well, and then going way well into the second year. So 30% of a toddler's diet needs to be fat, not a whole variety of millets and a whole variety of vegetables, fruits. Yes, those are important, but like I said, 30% needs to be fat. And in the view that most mothers are weaning their babies from their natural milk between 6 months to 1 year, commonly in urban areas, they are not getting the natural fat they could have got from their mummies. So there is that compromised nutrition coming in. Then we expect them to slowly or suddenly transition into cow's milk or formula. And that poses the next part of the difficulty, because that's not natural tasting for a baby. The formula is pretty much little bit of sugar, little bit of processing, lots and lots of different powders, and some amount of condensed cow's milk. Do you think that is going to give them the ability to develop their taste buds naturally? I don't think so. And that's the first key to what starts happening, which didn't happen 50 years ago, because we didn't have all these processed industries, we didn't have all this marketing going on, so there was no other choice. Now, for the last 50 years, we have all of these choices. If a baby seems to not be happy at the mother's breast, we start giving processed formula. If a baby is not having solid food, we start giving different kinds of Cerelac and packaged foods. And all of them have something in there to cause that little bit of addiction and absolutely change the taste buds, which now no longer understand natural food tastes. So let's go right back to the tongue example I'd given you, where we had talked about the taste buds in our mouths, where the tongue is divided into 6 different parts or 6 different tastes. The front starting with the sweet and going right to the back to the astringent. And if I have been introduced to different kinds of processed food in the form of formula and then in the form of processed baby cereal, I'm not going to understand those nuances. I'm already used to a different kind of taste that is synthetic and not natural. And now my hormones do not identify or secrete with the natural. They only identify or secrete with the homogenized tastes. So that's mistake number 2 that we are doing. Mistake number 1 was not giving enough fat. Mistake number 2 we are doing is processed foods at a very early age, and now your taste buds are homogenized and no longer existing as they should. So if I give a plain flavored food to a child who's already used to all of this packaged food, they're most likely not going to have a very great reaction to, let's say, a squeezed lemon in their mouth, or a banana that's not a regular homogenized yellow banana but a different tasting green banana, because they don't have that kind of variety in their mouths to taste different things. Also, we tend to think that babies need pureed food right from the beginning with everything mushed up. Yes, they need soft food sometimes. There is a theory called baby-led weaning, where we allow babies to find their own foods by offering them different textures. As long as they are not choking hazards, babies can find a way to eat, chew, or not process all of that food. But a lot of us don't have the faith in that process, and we still tend to mash up puree 5 or 6 items together. And what do? As a common mistake, we put a screen in front because we've already identified a child who didn't open his or her mouth willingly as a fussy eater, and we saw our neighbor or our relative using a screen or an iPad, and that's what we did. Put it in front and put the spoon from the side. What do you think happened? The child probably ate without registering the taste of anything, and you probably mixed everything in that, from your dal, your vegetables, to your rice, to whatever else you wanted to feed the child, in that big mush. Feed it while they were watching. So not only did the child not register what they were eating, but even if they wanted to, they no longer have a choice because everything's mixed, so no individual flavors. So one way to correct this, just like with the fats, you have a whole variety of fats that I would request you to give your young ones. Go into an exploration of taste buds. And for a child, the easiest way to do that, in fact, adults can do this therapy too, but it would take much longer for an adult. For a child, it's much faster. Potatoes are the magical food that correct your taste buds, because they also have, as mashed potatoes or just boiled potatoes, alkalizing properties. They have slightly sweet, slightly sour in the mouth, slightly pungent. I know a lot of us haven't tasted just basic potatoes. If you put your child on a diet, and remember, potato has good energy carbohydrate. Sugar, it's a complex carbohydrate. So if it's just boiled, no harm done to your child. For 3 or 4 consistent days, just give regular potatoes and fruit in the morning with no added salt, no added sugar. The earlier this is done, the minute you discover fussy eating, you will correct the taste palate of that child, because potatoes lend themselves to a whole lot of development in terms of the taste. Now, a lot of you are thinking, how is this even possible? Because potatoes in our heads are fatty root vegetables, things that we should not commonly be eating, but actually it's the form. Like I talked about the fats right in the beginning. If you fry it and you overcook it, it's toxic for your body. But if you eat it in its regular natural form, it is absolutely perfect. So potatoes also, of course, not very regular natural form, but lightly steamed or boiled, excellent. Just to correct all of those taste buds and give that necessary energy while you're switching over. So this is an experiment. Now I'm just going to add something here. If I needed to correct a 35-year-old man's taste buds, what would I do? How would I apply this there? I would have to do this for at least 10 days. In those 10 days, 2 or 3 things will happen. Number 1, that person is going to be sick and tired of eating just potatoes. Remember, you cannot add any flavoring. No salt, no flavor, nothing. So if you just ate boiled potatoes for 10 days, you would absolutely survive because it's got natural sugar, natural carbohydrate. You're not putting any salt, no sugar, no oil, no butter. It will absolutely taste correct. You will reach your weight loss goals because nobody can overeat boiled potatoes over 2 days. And you will absolutely accept and beg for any food that I give you after that, which means all food is yummy after that. All food is yummy after that. So any of you who have the courage to try this, and there are many gurus in the world who have done taste corrections in nutritional rehab centers, in nutritional disease reversing centers. This is a very common therapy that is done. It is done in a closed environment where you absolutely can't run open cupboards and stuff food when you absolutely can't deal with this. So you are kind of in a controlled environment. But if you have the control to try this at home, if you have identified that you are an adult with fussy eating and highly nutrient deficient body, please do this for a much more wholesome few years going forward and decades going forward with no disease in your body. Now coming to the next important point in this, which is the brain drain of every single parent. Why I say parent? Because now moms and dads are equally invested in their child's eating, growing, toddlerhood and early childhood years. And if the tone is not set right from the beginning, it gets harder. So here I'm going to give you a little bit of trivia and what I do when I work with young children, which sometimes seems like a very iron-fisted approach, but it's an approach that will always work provided the mother and the father have the ability to withstand. When I say withstand, children can really push your limits and make you feel like your heart is wrenching and breaking when they cry. So the first thing to do as an adult who is raising children, or as a partner who's trying to help correct her own partner's fussy eating habits for better nutrition: stay disciplined, stay focused, stay consistent every single day for at least 7 to 10 days. Now, how would that manifest in a child's life? Any child under the age of 2. You offer food, you offer it for 10 to 20 minutes to half an hour. If there is a rejection, you do not offer toys and entertainment. This is negative reinforcement. And I know a lot of you will be able to mirror this with adults as well. When they throw a tantrum that I don't like this food, what do most family members do? They try to please, especially I'm talking in the context of Indian male partners. Still that stereotype does exist, where we have, oh, you won't eat this? Okay, let me go order some food for you or make something different. What would you like to eat? There's a whole dance around, flattering the taste buds, which are really not enhanced. And that's negative affirmation, isn't it? And we start this right from childhood, and there's a repeat of this behavior constantly till adulthood. And whoever the indulgent person is or indulgent people are, not only are they harming themselves by repeatedly exposing the person to this kind of indulgence, they are harming the person who itself is asking for the indulgence, because it is a negative affirmation for constant fussy eating. Constant fussy eating, and it reaffirms in their head that I'm getting so much love and affection by behaving in this manner. So they continue to eat that, but what happens? You create nutrient deficiencies in a very, very serious way. You also create dependency behavior in a very, very serious way, because they also at the back of their mind have a fallback that they will take care of me. And who is going to suffer? Everyone in that family circumstance. The person who is going to physically suffer and everyone who has to take care of this. Unfortunately, there are no exceptions to this rule. If you are going to have an excessively fussy eater who doesn't eat at least 2 essential food groups, they are going to have serious nutrient deficiencies, which will ripple into digestive, hormonal, lifestyle diseases by the time, at least in the present day, by the time they are 30 to 35 years old. Maybe 50 years ago, the body would have waited till 60 or 70 years of age, but now everyone in my clinic with hormone and lifestyle diseases is 25 plus, and sometimes even younger, and that's a heartbreaking fact. So be aware of this. So what would I do for a child? I would offer that food, keep it there for 30 minutes. Do not reaffirm by giving toys or playing or making them watch TV. Yes, I can speak to the child, I can negotiate, I can reoffer after 5 minutes. What do I do after 30 minutes? Now this is going to be really, really harsh for a lot of you parents out there, even if you have a child older than 2 or 3 years old or an older young adult. Anytime you have some accountability, responsibility or control in the situation, you absolutely can apply this. But after the age of 2, it's very difficult to apply it. And I'll tell you exactly why. When I, after half an hour, stop offering that food and I say that 2 o'clock was your lunchtime, you You didn't eat, I don't give you food till 5. Trust me, by 5, that child will eat whatever you give that child. Because at that age, survival is so basic, hunger is so basic, they cannot stay beyond that point. It is not emotional, it is physiological. But after the age of 3, it is no longer only physiological. We have become emotional beings, action, reaction, habits, distractions. So, just from that 1.5, 2 years of age, 3 to 6 years, what do you think is going to happen if I did the same strategy? Let's mirror this to older ages. 3 to 6 year old, I say, I'm taking this food away. If you don't eat it, you don't get food for the next 3 hours. You think at 5 o'clock the child will come back and eat? Maybe not. Continue playing. Do you think the child will come back at 8 o'clock and eat? Maybe not. The child will still continue playing, maybe have some water, go off to sleep, throw a tantrum, try to access food through other people that they like biscuits or a glass of milk, something like that. And then what happens? How long do you think a 3 to 6 year old can stay adamant and absolutely not eat? And I'm going to give you clinical facts today. A 3 to 6 year old who decides that I'm going to show my mother that I absolutely will not eat what she's trying to give me, even if she gives me no food, can stay hungry for 3 days. Yes, you heard me correctly, 3 days. So between the age of 1 and 3, if you didn't correct this behavior, you have a situation where you absolutely will not be able to withstand keeping your child hungry for a full 3 days. I'm very passionate about this subject because I work on this on a daily basis, and I have mothers absolutely woeful because they are facing this constantly. And I always tell them, come to me at 6 months, let's work till 18 months, because this is something you cannot let happen. Once you've crossed that age after 3, it's really, really hard. And now let's take this to a 30-year-old. What will happen? If I say, I'm not going to give you this food and you can stay hungry. Of course they're not. They can open the fridge with their own hands and eat. And if they don't find anything interesting, they are just going to call up someone and order food in. So you see, past a certain age, it becomes harder and harder, and you will have to revert then to strategies like making them aware of their health, driving fear into them, and making them see what's really happened to their health. But many, many times, unfortunately, that's not the case till something knocks on their door of their health. Something happens. There are certain parameters. It could be a freak blood test because the whole family was getting one. You suddenly started feeling fatigued, lethargic at the age of 30, couldn't even do a basic run, or had some other major digestive issue. What happens then? You see another family member, you see yourself, and it rings a bell that, okay, something's not working, I'm not okay. What do I need now? How do I get back on track? Many people don't have the motivation to go back and correct this through nutritional changes. So what might they reach out for? What might a child or a parent who's a parent of a fussy eater reach out for? We would reach out for supplements at the time, even though that is not the number one go-to at all. Not the number one go-to at all. You would, at that point, when there are huge deficiencies already created, from the child to this adult who I'm talking about, maybe 30, 35, the first way to go about it would be, at that point, an entire lifestyle management plan, which would be for a 2-year-old and for a 35-year-old. Strategies would vary slightly. What do? We do taste correction first. Of course, the simplest way was the potatoes, but many, many times not doable. The other is increasing the fats. And the fats should not be the fried fats, the plain fats. Then exposing to a wider gamut of diet, which would include all the food groups that we've talked about in the last 12 days, from the proteins to the intermittent fasting, vegetable juices, to the fruits in the morning, to the seeds and nuts. So that entire gamut of food, and getting them off all the processed carbohydrates and sustaining this for at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks is the magical point at which the subconscious memory starts to turn. So remember, for all of you who are trying to change any habits, 6 weeks is the turning point after which the subconscious memory, which has stored information about taste, starts to change and turn. But it does not transform. Transformation will happen somewhere between 6 weeks and 6 months. That's how long you have to stay consistent, you have to stay disciplined, and you have to stay at it again and again and again. And that's really, really hard work. So many of us choose to pop a pill, supplements. That's the new mantra today for everything. You go to anyone, they're like, oh, have a supplement for this, have a supplement for that. Like a friend asked me today, what do I do if I have a vitamin D deficiency and my levels, which should be above 20, are at 8? What am I going to say to them? Go stand in sunlight, take a morning walk? Yes, absolutely. But before anything else at that point, I will say call your doctor and take a supplement first. And why? Because all this while I was saying all natural. But some of us, unfortunately, have damaged our bodies. Some of us don't even know we are fussy eaters, but we eat those 2 or 3 basic food groups and we don't tend to eat a whole lot of junk, so we think we're okay. But here today, I'm not talking about people who eat junk. I'm talking about people who do not eat the 5 or 6 groups of food, meaning fats, proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, the ones that we've all studied in school and know some basic knowledge about. So we're not eating a balanced meal of all those food groups, and we're definitely getting deficiencies, and at that point, supplementation absolutely comes in. So the advice I gave her was vitamin D supplements, number 1. Getting to that sun naturally, taking a walk in the morning, number 2. And guess what the third thing was? Now the third thing is extremely handy. I have absolutely mentioned it before, but today it's most relevant because fussy eating and that turning point is all about willpower and increasing that willpower. When it comes to a child or a toddler, it's the parent's willpower which has to increase so that she can implement that. Of course, I'm making this much more mother-centric, but when it comes to an adult, it's a he or a she who has to do it for themselves and their partner or buddy who's going to help them out with this. And they all need to have patience, resilience, and willpower. And what is the easiest way, most cultural Indian way of doing this? It is a yogic way of breath work. Simply breath work, disciplined every single day, whether you start with 3 minutes and go up to 10 minutes, or you start with 10 minutes and go up to 20 minutes. Like I said yesterday, whatever your starting point, every 4 days, consistently build up. We talked about every day, every 4 days, patting yourself on the back, giving yourself a reward, and then moving on to the next. So in the same way today, I tell you to start the breath work, build that breath work, pat yourself on the back every 4 days, and keep going ahead with it. Because automatically, breath work brings discipline, brings resilience, brings willpower. And for a child, it would be the mother who's doing it. For an adult or even someone above the age of 7 or 8, absolutely can do this by themselves. And this automatically, how does this have a correlation? Why did I choose breath work for the mouth, for the oral senses? Because there's a very, very intrinsic way in which they are intertwined. Try this out today as an exercise. As soon as we finish here, do a simple deep breathing exercise if you do not know any pranayam, or do a simple anulom vilom, which is left and then right nostril breathing, one after another, and then in and out from the other. Breathe with your mouth closed, just focusing on inhalation, exhalation for 5 minutes. You're going to see something interesting happen inside your mouth, and that is you will have secretions and you will have an aftertaste. What's happening there is your hormones are releasing whatever is missing in your body from the food that you are eating. The body is intelligent enough to cure and heal itself. So when you sit down quietly to heal yourself, your body will absolutely do it for you. And breath is the easiest way, because you can't live without breath. It is that intrinsic ingredient that keeps you alive more than food or anything. So when we learn to channel our breath and not do the short, quick breathing, and we make it deeper and deeper and deeper, we bring awareness, we bring discipline, we increase willpower, and we secrete all the right hormones through our taste buds centers, salivary glands, going through our digestive tract, making sure that our absorption channel becomes more enhanced. And this is the number one way to tackle nutrient deficiency. Then comes your supplements. And what are the common supplements that I have seen anyone from toddlerhood to adulthood now requiring? The number one I gave you was vitamin D, which my friend asked me today. What more? So we have calcium deficiencies coming in, and like I demystified milk the other day, milk is not the only source. There are so many others coming through our nuts, seeds, things like drumsticks. But every single one of these deficiencies has to do with the ability to absorb in the body. And if the oxygen in the body and your blood cannot carry it correctly and process it and absorb it, then there's no point in what you're having. It's really not going to affect your body in a positive way. So you need to make sure you're doing everything to make your body completely absorbent. It needs to be something that attracts good food, it attracts nutrients and takes it in. Because if it isn't, even those supplements are not going to help the so-called fussy eater. And so all of these things come in combinations, and they are recognized in combinations in the body, which is why many intelligent pharma companies now make combinations like calcium with magnesium and vitamin D, or iron with omega-3, folic acid, vitamin B12, or many physicians recognize that they all need to come in a gamut, because even if one is missing, you will not be able to absorb the iron. I know this because I work with a lot of pregnant mothers, and iron seems to be the most contentious issue there, with most Indian mothers not having sufficient hemoglobin levels or ferritin levels. And we find that there is this little peptide that is secreted in our liver called hepcidin, just a little science lesson there, which actually is responsible for absorbing this. But we're looking everywhere else in the body. We're seeing that the hemoglobin is not okay, we're seeing the ferritin is not okay, and we don't realize that popping those pills isn't helping, because you're not making the hormone correctly, you're not secreting correctly to absorb all of this. And what would have been the right way to approach this? Just to have supplements to cleanse the liver. Just to have supplements to cleanse the liver. So what I suggest we all do when it comes to supplementation is really take a close look at what are the gaps. If it's a child, you yourself can work with your nutrition counselor to identify the gaps just by looking at the daily diet, observing the behavior, the digestion, the respiration, the growth, the weight, the skin. All of those things will give you ideas about the person's health. And then, of course, if it's severe, more diagnostic tests, and you can absolutely see where the gaps lie and do a fortification plan with a mix of natural foods, natural therapies, more sunlight on the body, better quality of sleep, and some herbal or regular medical supplements. For an adult, there would be a lot more lifestyle changes that I would recommend. But if there are alarming levels, like I mentioned for the vitamin D, and sometimes hemoglobin is 7 when it should be above a 12 or a 13, let's say for a woman, I will absolutely at that time probably switch to an Ayurvedic supplement. But in addition to that, look at the iron levels, from what foods are we getting them. Look at the omega-3 levels, from what foods are we getting them. Then going into the folic acid, which we get from sweet potatoes, from broccoli, normal natural foods, as well as a combined supplement to make sure that the immediate disease causing factors are mitigated. So don't run from supplements as if they are medicines that you're popping. Don't become addicted to them also, that they are a solution so I don't have to eat. But we have to find a balance that makes us well and improve our habits and improve our absorbability. So from a child's perspective, and a parent who's raising a child, I would say look at the fats, look at alkaline foods. Make sure you do not allow behavior manipulation and negative affirmation of behavior, like I mentioned. Don't dance in front of the child when they behave badly. Remove that food. Do not affirm negative behaviors there. And when it comes to an adult, honestly fortify them with the supplements and do a taste change therapy along with regular deep breathing pranayam to secrete the right hormones, salivary glands, tastes, and make sure that their body and their mind has more resilience and willpower going forward. So that's what I wanted to address today, because it's a common childhood to adulthood problem that we have seen springing for the last 50 years, and it's high time we acknowledge and combat it. So enough of all of this knowledge for the last 13 days. I've said do this, do that, how do we solve this? Tomorrow, let's talk about how we can eat, drink and be merry. That's my parting gift to all of you. So tomorrow again at 10 o'clock, I'm going to see you. Stay happy and healthy and log on again to fomonomore tomorrow at 10 p.m. See you. Good night.